An armistice is a formal agreement of warring parties to stop fighting. It is not necessarily the end of a war, since it may constitute only a cessation of hostilities while an attempt is made to negotiate a lasting peace. It is derived from the Latin arma, meaning arms, and stitium, meaning a stopping. The United Nations Security Council often imposes, or tries to impose, ceasefire resolutions on parties in modern conflicts. Armistices are always negotiated between the parties themselves and thus generally seen as more binding than non-mandatory UN ceasefire resolutions in modern international law. An armistice is a modus vivendi and is not the same as a peace treaty, which may take months or even years to agree on. The 1953 Korean War Armistice Agreement is a major example of an armistice which has not been followed by a peace treaty. Armistice is also different from a truce, a ceasefire, which refer to a temporary cessation of hostilities for an agreed limited time or within a limited area. A truce may be needed in order to negotiate an armistice. International law regarding armistices. Under international law, an armistice is a legal agreement which ends fighting between the belligerent parties of a war or conflict. The Hague II Treaty says, if duration is not fixed, the parties can resume fighting as they choose, but with proper notifications. This is in comparison to a fixed duration armistice, where the parties can renew fighting only at the end of the particular fixed duration. When the belligerent parties say, this armistice completely ends the fighting without any end date for the armistice, then duration of the armistice is fixed in the sense that no resumption of the fighting is allowed at any time. For example, the Korean Armistice Agreement calls for a ceasefire in armistice, and has the objective of establishing an armistice which will ensure a complete cessation of hostilities and of all acts of armed force in Korea until a final peaceful settlement is achieved. Armistice Day. Armistice Day is commemorated every year on the 11th of November to mark the armistice signed between the Allies of World War I and Germany at Compiègne, France, for the cessation of hostilities on the Western Front of World War I, which took effect at 11 o'clock in the morning, the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month of 1918. Most countries changed the name of the holiday after World War II to honor veterans of that and subsequent conflicts. Most member states of the Commonwealth of Nations adopted the name Remembrance Day, while the United States chose All Veterans Day. Armistices in early modern history. Armistice of Copenhagen of 1537 ended the Danish War known as the Count's Feud. Armistice of Sturmsdorf of 1635 between the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth and Sweden. Peace of Westphalia of 1648 that ended the 30 Years' War and 80 Years' War. Armistices of the 20th century. Armistice with Germany ended World War I, November 11, 1918. Armistice of Mudanya between Turkey, Italy, France and the UK and later Greece, 1922. Armistice with Italy, formal agreement of warring parties, the Allies and Italy, to stop fighting that was signed on the 3rd of September 1943 by Walter Bedell Smith and Giuseppe Castellano. Moscow Armistice, signed by Finland and the Soviet Union on the 19th of September 1944, ending the Continuation War. 1949 Armistice agreements between Israel and its neighbors Egypt, Jordan, Lebanon and Syria. Korean War Armistice Agreement, July 1953. Geneva Agreements signed by France and the Viet Minh on the 20th of July 1954, ending the First Indochina War. Armistice in Algeria, 1962, which attempted to end the Algerian War.